Welcome to a new mini Meet the Masters. Today we're looking at the work of American painter and mixed media artist Robert Rauschenberg. So the reason Robert Rauschenberg is such a highly regarded artist is because he pioneered a new art form, and he called it combine. So combine combines painting and everyday objects. So it kind of blurs the line between sculpture, which is three-dimensional, and a painting, which is flat. It has elements of both. So that's what makes his art so special. He would collect discarded objects around the streets of New York or from junk shops or his own possessions, and then create new pieces of art with them. So this piece is called Monogram, and it's probably his most famous piece, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So he was born Milton Ernest Rauschenberg in Port Arthur, Texas in 1925. And then after World War II, when he decided to start a career as an artist, he decided to change his first name to Robert, just went by Bob. And a lot of his work was created in New York City, and that is where he died. So a couple words to know. The first one is collage. Collage comes from the French word that means to glue, because often it involves gluing down paper to your background. And it's an artwork created from usually some kind of a cutout found object, so bits of photos or magazine pages or greeting cards, that kind of thing. And sometimes they incorporate paint as well. So on the left side, you see a collage by Hannah Höch. She was a German artist, lived like in the early 20th century. I think that piece was created in 1919. And so she used only cutouts from news articles in the newspaper. So that's what hers is. And on the right, you see a piece by Wangechi Mutu, who used cutout images. So like the eyes, the ear, the flowers, the lizard are all cut out. And then she embellished that with paint and her own creative touches on there. So collage is generally flat though. And the next word is assemblage. So an assemblage is art made by assembling a found object, and sometimes applying paint to them, altering them, and sometimes just putting them together. But in opposition to collage, which is flat, a assemblage is usually three-dimensional. So you have three assemblages here. The left is Marcel Duchamp. Then the middle is it's called Long-Term Parking by Armand. He's a French artist. And then Merit Oppenheim's Object, where she used a cup and a spoon and covered them in fur. Anyway, so those are assemblages. So Rauschenberg actually started his career by kind of going full on minimalist there. So this painting is called the white painting. Gee, I wonder why. Anyway, it's just three canvases. He painted white with white house paint and roller. And it's kind of one of those things where you go, okay, this is even still art. His idea was that when you stand in front of it, it actually changes the painting because it will reflect the color of your shirt. So it looks, if I stood in front of it, there'd be part of it that would look slightly blue, or it would get darker as the room got darker, lighter as the room got lighter. Anyway, so this is one of his really early pieces. Think about it what you may. So he was playing around with the whole idea of what is art. Is an idea, a concept enough to create art, even if there's no object that really represents it? So he was invited to a gallery show that was all supposed to be portraits of Iris Clert, who owned the gallery. And so instead of sending a portrait, he sent a telegram. And in the telegram, he said, "This is a portrait of Iris Clert, if I say so." In other words, in art, why shouldn't words be a portrait if I decide they are? Anyway, do you think he's being serious? Do you think he's making fun of the art world? Up to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about his most famous piece, Monogram. So it went through several iterations. We saw the date was 1955 through 1959 because he worked on that for a long time. So this was the first version of this piece. So he was not happy with it because it could only be viewed from one side. But look at the painting he did for the background there. Like, note that little necktie. So when he decided that background piece wasn't going to work, with a goat, he decided to turn it into a standalone piece, also an assemblage. So you have like paper, enamel, a necktie, pencil, all kinds of stuff in there. So this was attempt number 2. So he did this very long vertical painting and then put the goat in front of it. So you could see the goat from most sides, but he also decided that it looked too much like the goat was pulling the painting, and he didn't want the goat to like look like a beast of burden. So he moved on. But again, that long panel there, notice that panel. So again, when it didn't work with the goat, he made it the center panel of this piece, Summer Storm. Doesn't it look great? Okay, so this is the final iteration of the piece. It got the name monogram, by the way, because the way the goat came through the tire reminded him of the monograms people would put like on their shirts or pillowcases or silverware, where they combined the 2 letters of their name. So there, I give you an example of one there so you can see how he might have gotten that idea. The goat, by the way, he got in a junk shop and they wanted $35 for it. He only had 15 on it. And he asked, will you take it and I'll bring the rest later? And they're like, okay. And then by the time he had enough money to pay off the $20 he owed, the shop had closed. So the goat only cost him $15. Anyway, if you go to that link down there, just type it in your browser. That'll take you to about a 4-minute interview with Robert Rauschenberg, where he tells you some more about his piece. Here's another view, the side view. So here is another combine that he did that is pretty well known, and this piece is called Canyon, and it has a taxidermied eagle in it. And so on the left there in that small picture, you can kind of see the size of these paintings. You know, they're pretty big paintings. Another really well-known piece of his is this one called Bed. So on the left is the full-sized one, on the right I did a close-up. So that is one day he woke up in the mood to paint, and this was before he got rich and famous in the 50s. So he had no money for canvas, so his solution was to take the quilt off his bed and then use paint, toothpaste, fingernail polish, anything you could find to create the piece. And then later he mounted it on wood. But how fun is that? So those were kind of the pieces he's most well known for, and most of those would qualify as assemblages because they have a 3D quality to them because there's 3D objects affixed to the canvases. This one would be a collage. So this was retroactive. It's another very well-known piece by him, and he made it after the Kennedy assassination in 1963. So it uses some found images of John F. Kennedy and like a NASA image, and then it combines that with his own paint application. So he also really loved to dance. So if you go to the link there, you can see like a 45-second clip of a dance performance that he both choreographed and created the set for. He did a lot of collaborations with the Merce Cunningham Dance Theater. So for his final piece that we're going to look at today, this is an album cover he designed for the Talking Heads. So it's a collage. It combines paint and then photos of that chair called Burning Down the House. And he actually won a Grammy for that. I didn't know they gave out Grammys for album cover design, but apparently they do. Okay, it's now time to create your own piece of collage or assemblage art. So now it's time to make your own collage or assemblage. You can start by gathering materials, cut out some pictures from magazines that you really like, go to your recycling pile, gather some things from there, maybe from your junk drawer, little bits of toys that have gotten lost or that you no longer want, and then get some paper and paints, and then you'll just create your own design out of those pieces. So I will show you one that I did. So this is mine right here. You can see I used all kinds of things in my assemblage. I used an old soda bottle. I used some rocks. I used an old glass bottle I had. I used some little Scrabble tiles and beads and cardboard and you know, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So it was really fun to make this. So I hope you have fun making your own assemblage. Doesn't have to be this fancy. You can do something really small, like a 5x7 size piece of paper. If you use standard size paper, then it's much easier to frame it afterwards. This one I actually got a frame from the thrift store and just recycled it. So have fun making your own assemblage. I would love to see what you come up with. Enjoy.